What if the missing piece in your personal and professional life isn't just a new strategy or a new process, but a wonderfully provocative person? Someone who sees what you don't, says what others won't, and helps you to take bold steps when you're too cautious or too afraid to take them. In a world that celebrates being self made and hyper independent, what if the smartest move you can make is to connect with someone who's got your back, sees your blind spots, and senses your breakthrough even before you do some days? Helps you stop shrinking, start soaring, and flying free. And what if that person was part consultant, part cheerleader, and a full fledged wing woman? Aha, that's interesting. Hey, my friends, welcome back to the UNCOMMODiFiED podcast. I'm Tim Windsor, and today on the show, my guest is Jen Anderson. Jen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Tim. Nice to see you
Awesome.
today.
That's great. Awesome. Now, who is Jen Anderson? So, Jen is a professional wing woman, which we're going to talk about today. She partners with
Correct.
business owners on strategy, collaboration, communication, and getting ideas out of their heads and into the real world around them, which isn't easy for people because we overthink things and get stuck. Sometimes we need somebody beside our flying, beside our plane to help us. So, that being said, I love to uncork a drink with my guests. Let's do that, Jen. What are you drinking tonight?
Having in honor of almost summer because it's nice weather here. I've got a classic iced tea, a spiked iced tea, Sun
Oh,
Cruiser.
that looks
Yeah,
good. Okay, well, you know
put
what?
mine in a
I went
glass.
sort of similar, a little different. I'll open it up first. Hopefully, I don't get it all on me. I doing a White Claw, a hard seltzer.
Oh,
It's lime. So
I like
cheers to
those
you.
too.
Yeah,
Cheers.
celebration of almost summer.
Yeah,
Mm. You know what? That's a decent drink. I don't drink a lot of those, but they're not too bad at all. All
yeah.
right, so I love to sort of crack open a conversation with the question, and I'm just going to lay out my questions in general to you to start, and we'll sort of pick at them as we go.
Okay.
So I gotta understand, and my listeners have to understand what is a wing woman. Okay, we got to understand that. We obviously
Yes.
have to figure out why do you identify as one, and why does everyone need one? So let's start with this. What the hell's a wing woman, Jen?
Isn't that the question? That is the burning question that I get
Yeah.
asked frequently. It is a self-made title that I have bestowed upon myself because what I found was that the people that I started to work with, I originally kind of thought I was going to be an assistant. I came from, my background is in fitness and I was in leadership, and I led teams, 50 plus people, 70,000 square foot building, all the places, spaces, marketing, all the business things that you do. And so I had all of the business background and the people skills. And when I decided to leave that world, um, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my skills and bring them online and see who I can help out. Some visionary entrepreneurs that need some help. I can be an assistant. And then I very quickly saw that that really wasn't where my skill set was, because what I was finding was they were kind of operating in a silo, and they didn't have anybody to strategize with and collaborate with and
Mm,
bounce those ideas off of, and somebody to hear what they're not saying. So when I started working with my people in that capacity, they were able to open up their capacity and not necessarily their workload. So I was like, the only way to describe it was, I was like, I'm a wing woman. I'm partnering with these people. I've been using that term since my kids were little. Um, and that's just kind of always who I am, just a natural collaborator. Uh, Communication is super important. I'm good at that. So I kind of just started pairing up with people, and that was sort of the evolution of that.
pretty powerful. And I always like to figure out where do things come from. So where are these words coming from, and how does this work? So I did a bit of research, which I found interesting. And of course, most of us probably know that this title originally started as wingman, and that's only because
Mhm.
we live in a very patriarchal world, Jen, where we tend to look at this way. But the term wingman, I was interested to find out. Obviously it's a military term, but it was started being used first of all in World War II in the 1940s, and it particularly referred to a pilot who flew beside or slightly behind another pilot in formation. And the interesting thing for me was when I read about this is that there was some specific things that they had to do. They had to provide support, they provided protection, and additional situational awareness. That's actually from like the manual in 1940s. Additional situational awareness. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So do you provide additional situational awareness for the people that you consult? And what does that look like? How do you get into their world, figure it out and become situationally aware of what it is that they might need to be thinking about.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I'm gonna be stealing that situational awareness because that is exactly what I'm doing with my clients. So once I start to know their their business model, their industry, what it is that they're looking for, lots of times when they're doing whatever job it is that they're doing, they're not looking for the other opportunities and the gaps and the opportunities. And that's where I get to come in. So I get to find them things like going on podcasts and talking to people about what it is that they're doing, maybe getting on stages or going to networking events. I help them fill the gaps. When you go to a networking event, what are you going to do afterwards? You just met all those people. You're just going to put all their business cards in a box. Let's make a plan for that. Let's look at where you're presenting yourself and where you want to be seen. What audiences do you need to be in front of, whether it's networking or, like I said, on stages, on podcasts. So I get to help them with that 360-degree view because sometimes they're
Yeah.
focused on that task, and I get to go, ooh, you know what you missed? Let's get you over here.
Oh, no, it's really powerful. And full disclosure to my listeners, I mean, Jen is how I ended up connecting with Diane Osgood. And, so Diane and I, our episode would have aired by now months ago when this one releases.
Yep.
And Jen connected me with Diane, and that was a great connection. And actually, there's a couple of other people who eventually are going to find their way onto the podcast as well that Jen connected me with. And I really appreciated that, Jen. We had a great connection. Of course, we connected over this great thing called LinkedIn, and then,
Yeah.
people reach out and you wonder if you should talk, and it's always that sort of awkward moment of like, what does this person want from me, and all the weird stuff that goes with that. I thoroughly enjoyed our first conversation, just chatting about life and business and how you look at the world, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have a conversation, because I do think that you embody this essence of this idea of being uncommodified. You want to take a different vantage point on it. You want to help people see a different vantage point on themselves or on their business or on their opportunities, which is really, really powerful. You use this term of sort of this 360 idea. I think that is really powerful because I do think that we all have blind spots. Things we can't see. Sometimes it's a false sense of humility that we just don't want to own maybe what we're good at or what we're great at, and we're not comfortable in our own skin. I think we've been all sort of overfed a little bit of this idea of imposter syndrome at times, where it's like, I can't even feel good about myself because I must be an imposter. But I think you see through all of that and you help people get clarity as they're flying sometimes a little bit in the clouds. Is that how you would characterize what you do? And help us understand why you think that's so important.
Yeah. When I'm a product of my own service. So
Mm,
when I was in leadership, I worked best when I collaborated with other people. That's
mm,
when the best ideas came. That's when you could kind of feed off of one another, like kind of getting those little nuggets of wisdom or borrow the confidence from the person next to you.
mm.
If you don't have confidence in yourself all the time, which all of us don't all the time, I mean, hope that you do, but that's just not how life works, right? Like
Right.
to your point, imposter syndrome. But it's like borrow some of the confidence that I have in you because I've already seen I've seen your social proof. I know you got this. So that's how I worked best. And I was like, that's what I want to bring to the people that I work with, when they're kind of again in that silo and working on their own and taking that 360-degree look. I mean, listen, I came from fitness, so I worked in a room with 360-degree mirrors.
Oh my
That's what we
gosh.
did. You can't hide. You can't
Oh,
hide from that.
you know
So,
what? I would never see. I mean, listen, I feel bad for the people who are behind me when I work out. I would not want to have to see that. And then ever going to see that all the time. I don't know if I like that. You said something before that I find very interesting, and I just want to pause on this for a second. And I also want, as listeners, I want you to think about this. You talked about allowing somebody to borrow your confidence. That is a
Mhm.
really interesting idea, and also I love the way that's phrased. So what if I understand correct, every once in a while people lack that confidence for some reason in themselves, in their work, whatever, but you're confident for them. You've got faith, you've got belief, and they can
Yep.
borrow some of yours when they need it. I think that's just a challenge to all of us. I mean, who in your world do you need to lend some confidence to? Do they need to borrow some of your confidence? Who in your world Maybe it's in your family, your children, maybe it's with a coworker, maybe it's with somebody in business, maybe it's somebody in a community group that you work with, but that you know is lacking confidence, but you see it in them all day long. You recognize they can do it, they've got it, and you need to lend them your
Yeah.
confidence so that they can take that and say, hey, you know what? I can do this. Again, I challenge you to find that person and allow them to borrow your confidence. It's a great way of looking at it, Jen. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we all have those days. Nobody's confident all the time, but
Hmm.
I also get a chance to hear what they're not saying. And I get
Mm,
to observe and I get to see the cues that they're leaving me visually. So
got
even though I work remotely,
you. Yeah.
right, when we're talking, I can still see their body language. And then my brain goes, oh, they didn't believe what they just said. I'm going to help them through this. And then I
Uh,
can kind of help them with their messaging or help them with their presentation or whatever it is that they're working on, their pitch, their proposals. It's like, did you really want to say that? How about if we say it in this way? Or then we get a chance to sort of collaborate
yeah.
and massage those things till we get to that right moment.
Powerful, and I like again, I just love the way you look at things. Hear what they're not saying. It's a really crafty way of thinking about it, and so often, I do a lot of coaching, and I would
Mhm.
sort of mirror the experience where sometimes I'm talking to somebody, and I'm like, "You don't believe what you just said. It's pretty
Yeah,
clear. Oh my gosh, man, you're trying to bullshit yourself and everyone else because you don't even believe what you just said, man. I think
right.
I think I heard your own eyes roll." It's a really
Yeah.
strange experience when you're listening and watching something. And the one thing I would say about the pandemic and how it forced us all into this virtual world and even like into Zoom environments and all of these things. The thing I find interesting about that is that I've done a lot of coaching over my life, a lot. Like I have 70 something coaching clients myself, and we have almost triple that in our whole my whole business. So we got a lot of coaching clients. And
Hmm.
I'll tell you, what's happened to me is when I used to do coaching in a room, had the whole room going on when you're in person and distraction and everything. But when you're doing Zoom or video virtual coaching and there's no way to hide and you're
Right.
looking right into that person and they can be sort of bigger than on your screen, you start to pick
Hmm.
up on things that you wouldn't have. And it is very, very intimate and intense. And you can
Hmm.
feel it differently in some ways. I find that very fascinating about the sort of the move to the virtual world. A lot of people disdain it, I know, but I actually
Yeah.
think in some ways it brings us into that experience and exchange in a different way.
Yeah, I agree. The two-dimensional aspect of it is sometimes even more telling than 3D.
Yeah.
So yeah, and when I first went virtual, I was still in fitness at the time, and I was told, well, you got to go online and teach classes, which I did not want to do. That was
Yeah.
the last thing I wanted to do. So I went to my living room and I did. But the funny thing is that people started saying, "Hey, I'm watching you in California. I'm watching you in New Jersey and
Uh,
Costa Rica." And I was like, "There's a whole world out there.
yeah.
I've been inside these four walls.
Yeah.
Look at all the people I could meet and work with if I decided to embrace this." And it was like, oh, this looks cool. This looks interesting. I want to know more about that.
That is cool. And what I love also about your journey and story, Jen, and because it, the wing woman is not a crafty marketing hook that you just came up with so you could, hawk your wares. You talked about this, that this is a term you gave to yourself or found yourself in or knew you were back with your children, which I
Yeah.
find even more powerful in the story because it makes it more authentic. It's not like you went on ChatGPT and say, give me a great handle. This is who I
Right.
think I am. So when do you first, like with your kids, I want to talk about that for a second because I really think the cool part is this is just something you have been and you understood you have been for a long time. So, how does the discussion of "Hey, I'm your wing woman" happen with your kids?
Yeah. Both of my boys, they're now 18 and 16, but they played travel sports their whole life, hockey, amongst other things. But really, when they were about like 8 or 9, my husband and I said, guys, we no longer talk to coaches. Like, you're the athlete. If you need something, you're going to your coach. And I would tell them all the time, Mom will always be your wing woman. So
Huh.
when you have to go have an uncomfortable conversation with your coach, which they did because that's just life, right? My one of my children, one of my boys was having a really hard time with a coach. And I said, you have an opportunity to turn your season around, but I can't do it for you. And I
Yeah.
can't want it for you, but I am paying for this.
Mm.
So we're going to go and I want you to take control of this and I will be your wing woman, man. If you struggle, you just give me a look. I'll finish your sentence. I am not going to leave you hanging because this was like a scary coach, right? I wasn't scared of him, but
Right.
the kids, I think he
I
was
understand.
probably 10 or 11. And he went and he had that uncomfortable conversation with the coach. And I just sat by his side and I said nothing. And he didn't need me to, but he knew that I was there. And at the end, the coach said, I've never had a kid come to and do that before. And I
Wow.
said, well, now you have. And you also, coach, please listen to my child. That's your job now. And then at the end of the season, he called my kid out. He said, he was the only one who came and talked to me and changed his whole season. But I
Wow.
always told him that, both of my boys, and said, this is on you, but I will be your wing woman. I always got your back.
Awesome. And apparently
Yeah.
your dog is your winged dog. I just heard your dog in the background. It's like
Yes, I didn't know
you
he
got a
was still
winged
living.
dog. I like that. You got a winged dog,
Yes.
which is pretty cool. You know, the way you described that story with your son, that's interesting because it is so much the image of the research I did historically. It's this flying alongside. It's
Yeah.
if I understand it correctly historically, you have a plane and a pilot who has a main mission. And
Mm-hmm.
but they have this wingman. They have this other plane, another pilot who's watching out for them, supporting, protecting, si- providing situational awareness, letting them know what's happening. Particularly interesting that they were watching what they called historically the leader's six. The six was the rear, the place of the plane they couldn't see, that back where they were more vulnerable. And so what I
Mm-hmm.
love about the analogy is it's like you're telling your son, hey, you're the pilot here. It's your plane. You got to fly it. I can be
Yep.
beside you. I can be there for support, but this is your mission. And so it just translates so well. But even more importantly, again, not just some made up marketing stick. So you can go out and say, hey, I got to find a crafty sort of hook so that I can make myself something I'm not, which would be rather inauthentic. You have been this for a long time, and now you're deciding and figuring out, hey, I could do this for others. There's a lot of people out there who understand, maybe they've got a mission, they're trying to do this, but they need some help along the way. So I'm interested to listen as you've gone on this journey, what have you learned about yourself, do you think, in the last couple
Mm.
of years? And what are you learning about, what are you seeing as common challenges that maybe some of your clients are facing, that you're saying, hey, this is the typical challenge I see for a lot of people, and here's maybe ways to mitigate it or work around it. But what do you learn about yourself too along the way?
That's a great question. Somebody who is in a job for 20 plus years, like I was, right, in one building, typically doesn't like change. But
Hmm.
what I'm finding now is that my job is change every day. And I'm kind of good at it. I'm okay with it. It's something I think that really scared me before. It was like that safety, that bubble of like, but I have a job, I got all the things, I'm needed here. And it's like, that didn't come to be, but I can make my own way.
Yeah,
I'm okay. I can figure this out on my own. So that gives me a little confidence, and I feel proud of myself sometimes. And even my boys will say, they ask me, Mom, how's your business going? And who are you talking to this week? Who are you networking with? Like they're still they're I feel like they're proud of me. So that makes me happy too. That they get to see that if you don't like what you have, you're not stuck. You can go figure this out.
yeah,
Um, even at I'm not a young gal anymore. I'm sure that's shocking to everybody, but I like to say I'm well seasoned, so
yeah,
I have made my own way to do this. And then what I see in my clients is it's really hard to talk about yourself, and that's where they get stuck when we're working on offering a new package or some iteration of a service that they have, or um, some new messaging or marketing or pitch. It's really hard for them to talk about themselves kind of objectively, but in a very positive way. So
yeah,
those the communication skills that I have, I think really come in handy because I can help them sort of massage all of that and say, again, like, were you trying to say this? And then lots of times they'll go, yeah. I love to write, and I like to write copy for people, and capture their voice, and they're like, that was exactly me. And I'm like, that makes me feel great. Like, that's what I want the world to see. I see how great you are, so that's what I want everybody else to see, the people that want to come and work with you.
Well, so you're not only letting them borrow some of your confidence, you're actually then letting them borrow or access some of the skills that you have to help them articulate themselves, tell their story, write a narrative that they can own and feel comfortable in their own skin and using,
Yeah.
presenting, speaking
Yeah.
with, and all these things. But even more importantly, along the way, you're also learning that, you're actually a lot better at change than you thought you were, which I think that's a great learning because change seems like this daunting sort of crazy thing.
Mm.
Actually, at the end of the day, you know, change is this ruthless inevitability that we live with every day. And it's amazing to me that we all have such anxiety and angst around change. The other day, my wife and I were, I don't think a memory came up on her phone as they do. And it was for a number of years ago, and our grandkids were much younger in the picture, and they were in our backyard in a little pool on a little slide. And, it was interesting because there was that. And then the next picture was my wife with the grandkids. And it was interesting because both her and I focused on, look how much the grandkids have grown. And then I had this epiphany and I said, Pam, look how much we've changed.
Yeah.
And this is the weird thing about your own changing and aging and all of that is that you don't really see it, okay? Until you look at a picture and you go, "Oh my gosh, I'm definitely looking older than I was." And
Yeah.
but that's the thing about change is that we have this weird relationship with change, which is just that part of the natural order. We're constantly evolving, changing, morphing, getting wiser, getting more seasoned, getting all of these things we talk about. But we're in constant change, and yet we have such anxiety and like people almost like, oh, I'm going to resist change and I don't want to change. I don't know how
Right.
that really works.
Yeah. And people will say to me now, they go, "Oh, you love this so much. This is so great. Don't you wish you would have done it sooner?" And I'm like, No, not really. I don't think I would have been ready. I needed all that life experience. I needed whatever those challenges were, working in corporate
Yep.
and working in team building, which I loved. I really loved that. But, there's a lot of challenges. I needed all of that to be in here before I could keep moving on. So, I also tell my clients sometimes you can't mess up what's meant for you.
Uh,
So, like, this was meant for me, so here I am. So
yeah, it is.
wing-o-minning away.
Well, and that's a great way of looking at life too. And I'm thinking of there's an ancient saying or proverb, and it sort of tucks into that. It's quite interesting to me. It says, "A man or woman with a wise heart, not a wise mind, a wise heart,
Mhm.
understands the proper time and procedure for all things, even when the matter weighs heavy on their heart." Okay, so there's this
Mhm.
sense of this time and procedure coming together, crescendoing together to your point, this the right moment where sometimes we live with a regret. Oh, I wish I would have done that earlier. The reality is, though, is that oftentimes there's this preparation phase. We're being prepared for something we may not fully understand, and all of this starts to make more sense. Maybe when we get there, we go, "Wow, all of this has been preparing me for this moment." And I guess that tucks into a sense of destiny and all of the stuff that goes with that. Do you feel that for yourself and for your clients?
I do. I do. I feel like all the stuff I just took all the leadership skills, all the stuff, the life that I've been, becoming more self-aware. I think, clearly the older we get, I guess not clearly, but hopefully the more self-aware we get, right? People that are when I'll speak for myself, not people. When I was in my 20s, I would have been a lot different doing a lot of these jobs.
Right.
So like I needed all of that, in my toolbox before I was able to really come and unleash it and help other people find theirs.
Yeah, there's a certain patience in finding wisdom, and
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
some of it can come. I mean, you can have very young people who are very wise. It's not
Oh
about
yeah.
age, but
Absolutely.
there is an opportunity, at least with age, to collect a little bit more applied knowledge and wisdom
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
we're willing to be humble enough to learn it. So there might be a critical component to, not necessarily being still in our teens and having everything figured out. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
You'll go through this soon. How old are your kids now?
16 and 18.
Okay, so you'll go through this like
Yeah.
we did, Jen. So from the time, until my kids got to, maybe different with your kids, but when my daughter and son turned like 28, we got a lot
Mhm.
smarter all of a sudden. We got super smart.
Yeah.
When they turned 28, we got super smart. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
journey that happens for sure. So
So it's coming, is what you're
it's
telling me.
coming. It's coming. Yeah, you'll get, and then it'll happen. So I want to look at this analogy in a different way for a second. So we've been talking about this idea of wing woman and we've been talking about it in relationship to this the traditional way of understanding it militarily as a plane. So do you also think of it like in relationship to this idea of like a bird and wings and flying and soaring and nesting and taking care of things, or do you not see this analogy that way?
I do. I do see it that way. That's part of innately, I think, who I am.
Yeah.
I've always really rooted for the underdog. I've always been the person I would, even when I was, in school, and if somebody else was getting picked on, I would
Yeah.
stand up for that person. But if I was getting picked on, I could just walk away. It didn't really bother me.
Huh.
So there's always been sort of that energy of like, I want this for other people, and it feels good to me. Like maybe people say that's my love language, maybe, right? That's your love language, when you really want to nurture those other people into their own, greatness, so that they
Yeah.
get to experience that.
So I think this is just a really interesting way of looking at this. And so I want to just push this analogy just for a second and say, are there times where part of your opportunity or obligation or your job or your role, call it what you like, is to sort of push somebody right out of the nest? It's just like, you got to fly, baby. Like you don't want to do it, but whoosh. Is that part of what you do? Do people pay you to push them
They
off the cliff?
they do.
Oh
Isn't
my
that
gosh.
funny?
Heck,
Who knew?
who knew
Yeah.
they would pay you? Push me off the cliff. No, don't do it.
Yes.
Push me.
Yes. Several people that I've worked with, actually, things like, oh, I don't know if I could get up on a stage and talk about that. I don't have something prepared. 10 minutes of me typing what they're saying. I go, here's two presentations. Let's go. Applied, booked them, got them. They're doing it. And it's like, now I really got to do it. And I was like, but you know what? I'm your wing woman. We got this. We're good.
You know what I like about that? So here's the great part of what you do, Jen. If I contracted you, you would with one hand, with one wing, you would push me right out of the nest, free falling, like scared
Yep.
shitless. And with the other
Hmm.
wing, you come alongside me and help me fly. Come on, this
Yep.
Jen, this is brilliant, Jen, what you do.
Scoop you right up with that. Yep.
Scoop you right up.
Exactly.
Push you out with one and
Yep.
scoop you up with another.
That's right.
I love
It's just it's that idea, like you're not doing this by yourself. You're not doing this by yourself. I got you. I got your back.
it. Yeah.
I'll be promoting this. I'll be talking about it. I'll be helping you shape it. Like this is like a teamwork thing. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
it does so much fight in the face, I mean, of this hyper independency that we have. We've moved into this economy where we've got so much of so much solarpreneurship. We've got people working on their own. We've got people figuring it out. There's a certain loneliness that creeps in with that, all the things that go with that. And so you're providing a very interesting window into a world that I think is going to become more and more popular for people to move into solo enterprises, and yet by doing that they take themselves out of that collegial environment, the collaborative environment, and that's the downside, the negative. And what you're doing is sort
Yeah.
of trying to push that back in for them in a very purposeful way.
Yeah. Yeah. And, usually, like I said, by the time they get to me, they're ready. They want to increase their capacity, but not really their workload.
Ah,
And so by helping them sort of organize, even if it's just organizing what's in their brain, they come to our meetings, weekly, biweekly, whatever we decide on. Um, I'm prepared so that they can tick off the boxes and then go back to the task. So then we have that sort of like partnership with that. So um, they can increase their capacity, but not necessarily their workload.
that's amazing. So right now, you do this. You live on Jennifer Street. By the way, I love it. So
Yeah.
for those of you who aren't, for those who are listening to the podcast, you have no idea why I just said that. For those of you watching the video, you know why. Jen's got a sign behind her that says Jennifer Street. You live on Jennifer Street.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know, so what's the next season for you? I'm assuming it's just Jen right now. I'm assuming you're a solopreneur, is that right?
I am,
Okay,
yes.
so what does Jennifer Street look like a couple years from now? Do you have a vision to change the dynamic of your business in any way? Do you still see yourself as an independent wing woman helping one person at a time? And where's the journey going to take you, do you think?
That's a really good question. I've been floated that a few times, like, people that well-meaning and certainly and people that I've asked how, I want to increase my capacity and the things that I can provide, but I don't necessarily know if I want, an agency, if I want a team of wing women, if I want to continue to work one-on-one with clients and help them assess where they are and what do they need in a wing woman. I know a lot of people that are doers. So when, you know, we identify some of the gaps and some of the things that are not my best skill set, like,
Yeah.
doing some of the administrative type work, I can get them those people. So that's what I'd really like to do is just kind of keep exploring who I can partner with and help them get to the next levels. And then I get there too.
Yeah, and I like that. And my own journey, I was a solopreneur for, oh, I'm embarrassed to say, a quarter century or more. And I only recently had somebody come into my business and has become a partner in my business. And I recently, in the last number of years, couple of years, 2 years, hired my daughter-in-law, and my son does some contract work now in the company. And it's different now today, but I purposely kept my business small, boutique. I
Hmm.
kept it very intimate, very personal. That fit my value set. It fit what I wanted. I surely could have more than likely made a lot more money if I would have sort of canned something and scaled it and all of these things that we encourage maybe other people to do, but it just wasn't right for me. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's wrong for people. It doesn't mean it's wrong for you or anybody else, whatever.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't right. Didn't fit who I wanted to be at the end of the day. And we've enjoyed a very, very great life in relationship to being provided what we needed to be provided in the season we needed it. But I just I didn't want it to be what it never should be for me.
Hmm.
So I like
Yeah.
the fact that you're in a conundrum about that, Jen. I like that your answer isn't just like everyone. Well, oh, of course, we're going to scale this thing. I think
Right.
thoughtfulness of I don't know what it should be, and I don't know what's right for me. I think it's a really great answer because it's so easy to give the other answer. Oh yeah, we're going to build capacity. We're going to scale it. This thing's going to, which is okay. At the
Yeah.
same time, going back to destiny and what you're created for, I really love the thoughtfulness that you're in a quandary about. And I would encourage you to sit in the quandary. I really would, because
Yeah.
I think so many of us just default to, well, it's got to go big or go home.
Right.
Maybe not.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because, again, that idea has been kind of floated like, do I train people to do what I do? And I could train people. And it was like what same thing with fitness. I can teach people how to teach fitness, but what I can't teach them is the intangible.
Yeah.
And that's what I always hired for. And I believe that that's what people are hiring me for. And that I can't teach. So I could find great people. There's no question. There's a million, you talk about being uncommodified. There's a million people that can do something similar to what I do, I'm sure, but I have that intangible that fits with the right people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the Jennifer Janquois. It is the
Yes.
the specific
Exactly.
Jennifer that you have to put on this, which is perfect. So listen,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to hunt you down and figure out if you were a good wing woman for them, how do they find you, Jen? What's the best way?
Sure. I don't even have a website. I never needed one. All of my business has been referral and word of mouth. So you can find me. I can give you my email, which is my initial J, my last name Anderson, Anderson, 5969 at gmail.com.
Look at that.
J
Love it.
Anderson
Love it.
5969 at gmail.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I really love connecting with people. That's how we met.
It is, yeah.
Um, I make a lot of good connections there too.
You do. And on LinkedIn, I think it's Jennifer
Yep.
Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love it. And hey, listen, if you're in need of a wing woman, this could be your wing woman. You need to find her and look her up. So, hey, let's
Thanks,
bring this
Tim.
conversation in for a bit of a landing. We'll put her back in the nest. So, of course, I always like to end my conversation with this question because my world is this idea of uncommodification. You talked about it, living
Yeah.
our unique expression of ourselves for the positive benefit of others. That's an important caveat. And my question to you is when you walk into a room of people, could be a business room, could be a personal room, you decide the context, and you're
Okay.
bringing the Jen.
Okay.
Whatever Jen can usually bring in her unique expression. What's Jen doing in those moments in that room that you know is your unique contribution to that space?
Mhm. I bring curiosity.
Mm,
I bring connection, eye contact. I want to look at people. I want to shake a hand, have a conversation, ask a lot of questions, um, and get to know the people that I connect with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, and I love that. I mean, curiosity and connection are great qualities. And again, if you're listening in, I think you listen for a reason. I always tell you, listener, again, what connection are you making in a room of people? It's a powerful understanding. So let's go back and sort of end where I started. And so again, listeners, just listen to this and consider this. What if the missing piece in your personal and or your professional journey isn't just a new strategy or a process for your business or for your life, but it's actually a person, someone like Jen in your life, maybe Jen, maybe somebody else, who sees what you don't at times, who says what others won't, who allows you to borrow their courage and helps you take bold steps when you're a little bit too cautious or a little bit too afraid, and you need a gentle or a forceful thrust out of the nest, and then someone to fly alongside you when you find your wings. That is a powerful opportunity. Maybe you need to be somebody's wing woman or wing man. We don't want to leave the men out of this one. But thank you very much, Jen, for your time. And listeners, thank you for your time. Cheers. Have an awesome day.
Here, thank you so much.